Knowing what I know now, people misinterpret money and freedom. Right now, I think what a true entrepreneur is chasing is that freedom.
Yeah, I can't agree with that 100%.
It may not be, you may not be a billionaire, right?
Right.
But you're making a really good income and you're free. You're free to go do what you want. You're free to spend time with your wife and kids. You're free to take vacations. You're free to do a lot of things that most other people aren't because they're at their 9 to 5. And I think that's what true.
The initial spark.
Correct.
Yeah.
I'll never forget to this day. We're sitting in his office. You know, we walk into this building, and it's a massive facility. You know, it's a 500,000 square foot building. He sits us down and he starts asking us, you know, the typical interview questions. And after the answer, you know, the guy grabbed a box of tissues and just started throwing tissues up in the air. And he was like, cliche, cliche,
Oh,
cliche.
shit.
You know, and I was like, I'm at work for, you know,
20 hours.
17, 18 hours a day sometimes. And, you know, the first 9 months of my son's life, I probably saw him 10 times.
Wow. Because
I'd leave the house before he was up, and I'd come home and he's already asleep. And same thing for my daughter.
Bam. Yo, what is up, everybody? This is the End-to-End Podcast, and I'm your host, Dr. Yun Nguyen. And as my friends affectionately call me Ninja, you, as my fans, can call me Ninja too. This is the End-to-End Podcast, the alpha to the omega, the beginning to the end, talking about life, motivation, success, entrepreneurship, self-improvement, and offering you morsels in this all-you-can-eat buffet called life. Back in the studio today with a very, very special episode. This is one of those episodes where I have a guest on, and this guy, man, his story is incredible. But before I get into that, I want to let you know, if you're new to the show, I always start my show as I start my day, and that's with an expression of gratitude. So all of you out there that have followed, liked, commented, subscribed, shared the show, most importantly, I want to thank you for your support. We are continuing to grow. My gosh, it's been a phenomenal run this year and almost a half. On to our mission, which is inspiring billions of lives across this planet. We're getting likes and shares from all around the world. So the message is resonating out there. And if you're new to the show, I do this show on my own time, on my own dime. No sponsors. It costs a lot of money, a lot of time to do the show. And so the proposition is a value exchange. If you learned something from the show, if you found any value, made you smile, made you laugh, just inspired you just a little bit, please do share the show. As I like to say, if your knowledge swole, share the show. That's how we grow. If you're new to the show, again, we have several types of shows. Most commonly is one where I just go on kind of a soliloquy monologue, just talking about a concept related to success and entrepreneurship. We also have prolific Q&A where the audience can send in questions and I'll answer it. And then we have a full show where I bring on a special guest that has experienced some type of success or on their path to success in life, and hopefully share that story so that you can compare or find ideas or values that you can apply to your life, where there's some commonality for your own success. And so this is one of these types of shows where I bring on a guest, and this guy, man, I've known for almost a year, but you know, we built a common bond around a lot of things. Primarily, we met because if you remember in the show around October of last year, I started with 75 Hard and a thing called Squat-tober, where we were maxing out, trying to build out our personal max on a squat, 4 a.m. every morning at the gym. And this guy was in the squat rack directly across from me. And so I had to stare at his face every day for a month, trying to rep out our maximum squat. And what took me, what I didn't want to say surprised me, but it inspired me most about this guy is the transformation he made over that course of time. Knowing him as an individual, a quality guy, high value guy, wonderful father, and importantly for this podcast, a great businessman. And so I want to welcome to the show a gentleman who started out on a common path like everybody, without any specific direction, but then all of a sudden found himself one of the partners of a $100 million steel distribution company, $100 million annual steel distribution company. Now, having realized success out of that, starting a new concept, which we'll get into, related to golf and sports entertainment in the Houston area. But I want to welcome to the show my dear friend, who he's like a brother to me, even though I've known him for like less than a year, Chris Pena from Texas, man. Great to have you on the show. Thanks for coming through. Yeah. Man, it was the transformation that I saw over the 75 hard and fitness thing is like, this dude is it was just like something clicked. Like you're on that trajectory where it's just gonna launch. But before we get into all that, let's talk about your upbringing a little bit. Because I want the audience to understand that how you grew up, like none of this was even in the realm of imagination of your path of life. And so how did you grow up? Kind of take us from there and then get to know you a little bit.
Sure. Grew up in Corpus Christi, Texas, so about 3.5 hours south of Houston. 2 wonderful parents, had a younger brother. We went to really good schools. We went to private schools growing up. So we had a lot of good role models around us growing up, right? So growing up in Corpus is a lot of fun, right? You're right next to the beach.
Yeah.
At the time, there was really good golf courses down there. My dad was a big golfer, so he got me and my brother into golf at a young age. And we built just a long list of friends down there in Corpus. All of our friends that we had at school, their parents were friends with our parents, right? So almost everywhere you went in Corpus, you ran into somebody. I think the town's gotten a little bit bigger since then, but it's still, to me, always had that small town feel to it.
Yeah.
Right.
So kind of a stable environment in the household, middle income, or
middle income, stable environment. I mean, we were going to church on the weekends.
Yeah.
We went to Catholic schools growing up, really good schools. Still to this day, some of the people that I went to school with, I still, I don't talk to every day, but we're still acquaintances and we'll talk, via social media, just like everybody else nowadays.
Yeah.
But we still have those connections out there. We built those bonds early in life. So that's pretty special in itself. But yeah, I mean, growing up in Corpus, there was nothing, crazy about
nothing out of the ordinary.
Nothing out of the ordinary.
Just your typical.
Yep. I mean,
small town.
Typical small town
experience.
Growing up.
Okay.
Yeah, nothing too crazy.
During that, what was your dad's occupation?
My dad worked at a law firm. He was their controller, and my mom worked for a oil and gas company as a landman. So she was going out and getting leases on different properties, so that they could drill.
Okay, so if you're unfamiliar with oil and gas, the landman goes out, gets surveys, gets titles, make sure the property is right, because in Texas, you can own the surface land, which might not necessarily mean you own the minerals underneath.
Correct.
So you're trying to determine or acquire land where you can drill for these oil and gas companies. Interesting, because then, as I mentioned to the audience, I mean, we'll get into that, where you grew a company to $100 million in revenue. Was there a lot of entrepreneurship discussions or business conversation growing up, or? No,
thinking back, it was never something that was in our household, or it was even, in my immediate group of friends, not really until I got to high school. My best friend in high school, his dad owned his own business. He owned a glass company in Corpus Christi. Outside of that, there was never really any, I never talked to anybody about it. Even being best friends with this guy, it wasn't even on the back burner, right? Like, hey, this guy owns his own company. It was never something we talked about, Every now and then, my best friend, his name was Chris as well. He was, sometimes it would come up and be like, hey, are you gonna work for the business? Or it was always, I'm going to do that in the summer. That's my summer job, that kind of thing. But, fast forward, almost 20 years later, and now Chris is running that business, right?
That's crazy, man. That's crazy.
So it's really neat to see those types of things. But going back to what you said, no, it wasn't, it wasn't something in our daily life that, was talked about or it was pushed. It was, the typical go to school, get your degree and get a job, right?
That was like a lot of people. The majority of people.
Yep.
So then you end up at University of Texas.
Yep. Went to University of Texas, studied there. And then after UT, went back to Corpus Christi. So I thoroughly,
What's your degree?
Biology.
Biology.
So
nothing to do with
nothing to do with.
So just to go to show you, I don't remember what podcast this is, ladies and gentlemen, but college is not all that. So, a majority of people end up in a field not even closely related to their degree.
Yeah.
And you'll hear through this story how that applies. So go back to episode, I can't remember, but when I talk about college, as I say, college has its purpose: social development, mental development. If you want to play sports or, become a doctor, lawyer, something with a license that requires college, yes. But in the end, in terms of business and entrepreneurship, it's almost, it means nothing. It means nothing, right? Yeah. Okay, good. So you go back to Corpus.
Yep. So went back to Corpus, and I took a job at a prosthetics company. Working, I was the one in the back room, kind of building these prosthetics.
Okay.
And
for amputees, veterans, people with diabetes. Okay.
So it was prosthetics and orthotics. So we would build shoe inserts, different stuff like that. And it was all built by hand, right? So the prosthetist, the guy who owned his own practice, he would physically go see the patient. He would take all the measurements, or maybe use a plaster to take a mold of their leg or arm, whatever it may be, and then that information would come back to me and the group that I worked with, and we would build it right to those specifications. So whether it was pouring plaster inside of these molds and then using literal hand tools to scrape it down to shape that mold to their leg, and then heating up some plastic and dropping that plastic over and cutting it down, getting it to the exact needs of the patient was our job. And working for this guy, after working with this guy for 4 or 5 months, is when I really started to see, man, this guy owns his own business. He runs his own hours. If he wants to close shop and take a vacation, he can close shop and take a vacation, right? It was really something that I think was the seed for what was to come later. That really kind of inspired me. Not quickly enough, right? Because my gears didn't really kick in until years later. But I think that seed was planted at that point in time, when I started working for him, and he was a really good guy. He cared about what he did. So working through there.
So it's kind of just the idea of freedom.
Freedom, exactly. That's the word that I think everybody mixes up. Knowing what I know now, people misinterpret money and freedom. Right now, a lot of people will chase the money, and everybody loves money, right?
Yeah, of course.
But I think what a true entrepreneur is chasing is that freedom.
Yeah, I can't agree with that 100%.
You may not be a billionaire, right?
Right.
But you're making a really good income, and you're free. You're free to go do what you want. You're free to spend time with your wife and kids. You're free to take vacations. You're free to do a lot of things that most other people aren't, because they're at their 9 to 5. And I think that's what true
the initial spark.
Correct. Yeah.
Coincidentally, wearing a 1776 hat.
Yeah.
It's about freedom, independence, right?
It's about freedom.
Yeah. Okay, so you got that bug then, and then
kind of got that bug, and I met a gentleman, a guy my age, while I was down there, And his father-in-law owned a real big ranch in South Texas, still does to this day. And he had mentioned, I'd like to hunt, to fish. I like those sports. So he mentioned to me that he's always looking for help on the weekends at the ranch, whether it's, cleaning animals, helping guide hunts, cleaning up the ranch, replacing roofs or building decks, fences. We were redoing hog fences and deer pens and all sorts of stuff out there. And I was like, yeah, I love that idea. You get to go out on a ranch, put a gun on your hip and go do manual labor. I mean, there's nothing better than that, right?
Like
that.
That's awesome. I'd do that today.
And drink cold beer while you're doing it, right? So, so I started going out there on the weekends, and it turned into a little gig. We'd go work out there on the weekends. He'd pay us really well. He'd pay us cash. So we'd go out, do some manual labor, drink cold beer, have good food. He had a chef there that would cook us 3 hot meals a day.
So again, I want to go back. None of this is in the grand design of the life of Chris.
No. I always pictured myself at, graduating college, getting my job, and getting married and staying on the road and get my 401k and retire one day.
That's crazy. So,
maybe win the lottery. I mean, that was about it. Yeah.
So I want to go to the mindset though, because it's just not. I'm trying to phrase this in the right way. It's not like, oh, what the hell, I'll give it a shot.
Yeah.
Or what the hell, I'm going to go do this. But what is hey man, would you like to work on a ranch? Yeah, sure, why not? Like what? Not a lot of people have that instinct to just try it or go and do it, right? I
think I've always been, and sometimes to my demise, I'll step into anything, right? Yeah. I'm not afraid to try something new or to go out and do something, but at the same time, it can hurt you when your friends are like, hey, let's go to another bar. Let's go do this. Let's go do that, right?
You're reckless with it.
Correct. And I think, even up to this point, I was still reckless, right? Yeah. I didn't, really understand the true consequences of what I could be doing or what could happen, doing those types of things. I mean, thank God nothing ever bad happened or anything like that. But
so do you think
understanding what those situations can do, I think I was still young, naive, and felt bulletproof sometimes.
Yeah, but you're in your 20s, right? A lot of people in their 20s, I can 10 feet tall and bulletproof. But the idea of was it a quiet confidence that allowed you to take those risks, or was it?
I think that's a good way to describe it.
Say, hey, whatever happens, I can deal with it. Mentality.
Yeah, I've always had that attitude. Whether it was a bad grade or it was, a flat tire or whatever that situation may be, I was never the one to, freak out about anything. It's like I'll handle it, right? One way or another, I can get it fixed. I'll find a way around it. I've always been able to kind of jump those hurdles pretty easily. But I've never been boisterous about any of that stuff. I've always just kind of stayed below the radar.
Did your thing, yeah.
Do my thing. If I run into a problem, I'm not the one that jumps on social media and says, hey, this is happening in my life.
Yeah.
Pray for me or whatever goes on social media. I've never been that guy.
Yeah. So it goes to that idea of never being the victim of a circumstance or situation, right?
Right. Yeah.
Like you are just, hey, it is what it is, and let me handle it.
Yep.
Is that something that? Because there's a lot of victimization on social media in this culture right now.
Mm-hmm.
Was that something that your family environment instilled in you? Is that innate in you? Like, where does that idea of never being the victim come from?
I think that comes from my upbringing. Now, even to this day, I don't know all the issues that my parents ran into, but, looking back, you never saw it on their faces, right?
Yeah.
And knowing, where I'm at now with 3 young kids, we run into shit all the time, right?
Yeah,
I mean, it's just, there's always something that's going on. Something's wrong. One's sick or what have you. And being able to navigate all that, you know, looking back, you never saw a face of worry, or there was never voices being raised in the house. So I think they navigated it the same way I do. And I think just subconsciously or innately, it's built into you that way. And so I'm able to take those issues, whatever it might be, small or big, and, you know, look at the problem and then start trying to find solutions. So I think my upbringing has a lot to, you know, do with how I'm able to handle those situations.
Yeah. And I don't want to skip too far forward, but that,
Sure.
you know, we'll get into how critical or important that mentality is in building $100 million company.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
So, but going back, so you're ranch hand, weekend dudes,
Yep.
you know, three hots in a cot on the
Yeah,
weekends.
man.
Yeah.
I mean, we're all shoved into a double wide. You know, you got a one tiny little shower. Most of us, you know, honestly never showered.
Yeah.
We'd go out, work, drink, and go to bed and wake up the next day, do it all over again. But being out there and being around, you know, these guys who own their own businesses, you know, the guy that owned the ranch, he owned a steel distribution business that was based out of Houston. And sitting around the fire one night, just kind of chit-chatting, talking, you know, he was the one that brought it up. He was like, why don't you come to Houston and interview? And I'd love to have you work with us in Houston. He goes, I think you'd be a great operations guy. You know, at the time, I had no idea what that was.
Again, totally unrelated to biology.
Totally unrelated to biology. It has nothing to do with biology. You know, I always thought I was smart enough to go to med school or something like that. You know, so I think that's why, you know, I think it was pharmacy. You know, I was going to be a pharmacist.
Dentist,
and do something in the medical field.
Okay.
But I learned real quick I'm not smart enough for that. You know, so.
Know your limitations, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, so I learned the quick way there. But yeah, he told me to come interview, so we set that up. You know, probably the following week, and we drove up to Houston and we interviewed. And it was actually me and his son-in-law who kind of did the interview, so we walked through the interview, and I'll never forget to this day. We're sitting in his office. You know, we walk into this building, and it's a massive facility. You know, it's a 500,000 square foot building, really nice offices. You got all, you know, the executive office wall. And so we walk into these offices, you know, just young cats in our 20s, and he sits us down and he starts asking us, you know, the typical interview questions. And I can't remember if it was me or if it was my buddy that answered first. But after the answer, you know, the guy grabbed a box of tissues and just started throwing tissues up in the air. And he was like, cliche, cliche,
oh,
cliche.
Shit.
You know? And I was like, whoa, okay. You know,
canned answers don't work here, bro,
yeah,
right?
That's not going to work. So
wow,
we had that, you know, I'll never forget that. I was like, oh, wow, this is a real job. They're looking for a different.
Even though you have this relationship and he invited you to the interview, he's the owner.
Yeah.
No freebies.
No freebies.
No
yeah,
handout.
It wasn't a handout. It was a real interview, and after that,
cliche.
So he ran the sales side of their business, and his older brother ran the operations side. And so when I say operations in the steel industry, that is all the warehousing, you know, getting product from A to B, and everything, basically everything.
So you get the raw steel pellets, smelting it down, melting it down, fabricating whatever.
So
is that what it is? Or?
In our industry, there was no fabrication or anything like that. We were what's considered a master distributor. And I think the easiest way to kind of describe master distribution in that industry is we only sold to distributors. So we wouldn't sell to end users. So think about Walmart, right?
Okay.
If you walk into Walmart, you're the end user.
Okay.
Walmart is the distributor. Well, Walmart's got 5,000 stores throughout the U.S. We would supply all 5,000 Walmarts. So where the Walmart you shop at has, 10 microwaves in stock. In our warehouses, we've got 10,000 so that we can supply all the distribution houses throughout the U.S.
Got it.
So just kind of
way up the chain.
We're way up the chain.
Okay.
We buy directly from the manufacturers. So I would say 80% of our product would come from overseas. I mean, you name the country, we probably bought from them. And then the other 20% was domestic. Okay. So very little steel, is actually made in the U.S., believe it or not. Now, carbon steel, you've got I think there's more tonnage there being made in the U.S. Okay. But
so
I don't want to skip too far.
The interview, going back to the interview, he's cliche.
He's cliche. And at that point, you're trying to like think on your feet. Shit, how do I make how do I get a better response? Right? Yeah, right. So we went through there, and it felt like it went well. And then after I talked to him, I talked to his older brother and the guy that worked directly for him, the director of operations, and we kind of took a tour of the warehouse there, and it was a lot, man. It was really overwhelming. There's probably 150 people in this warehouse, all forklifts driving everywhere.
But it's like a symphony. Everything's timed.
Everything's working well. Yeah. But yeah, it was a lot to take in on the first day. But kind of walked through there, talked with the guy who I would be working for, and we kind of finished up there, and I got the job offer. Come work for us in the warehouse.
Bottom of the ladder.
Yep, work in the receiving department. So you're getting in crates from India, Korea, China. You're bringing in crates of steel. You're opening up those crates. You're checking the steel to make sure it's good quality. It's what we ordered. And then you take that steel and you go put it up in, 30-foot tall racks, So
was that the job expectation you were looking for, or was that by design to put you at the bottom so you can learn the process all the way up?
So taking that interview and after kind of walking through how the company worked, right? After leaving there, I think the light bulb went off, and it was like, wow, okay, so there's different groups that you can work for. There was a clear ladder that could be climbed to get to the top.
Okay.
And I think, I'm definitely not the guy who's above working at the bottom of the ladder for a while to get to the top. And I think there's a lot of people out there who think that they should automatically jump to the middle or the
top,
the top of the ladder, whether it's coming right out of college or what have you. But I had no problem with doing that.
So that's one thing that I find admirable about you, knowing you, is the ability to have humility and have the graciousness of your character. Not to go too far forward, but where does that come from, and how much do you think that actually played in your success?
I think it played a big role in where I'm at today. But I think, again, that goes back to how you're raised. Yeah. Right. And I think, there was never anything that, neither one of my parents was above doing to take care of their family or make sure that ends meet. They were always willing to do whatever it took to get to where they needed to be. So I think my upbringing definitely had a role to play there.
I find that is common in a lot of successful entrepreneurs, is that either themselves or by example through a mentor, a boss, their family, parents, whatever, that the more successful ones have witnessed, I don't want to say rock bottom, but hard times.
Yeah.
Where you have to cope and just figure it out to build. Like,
yeah,
when my
for
parents
sure.
had their printing company early in the 80s, I mean, we would sleep on floors at the print shop.
Mm-hmm.
Just while they're working all night long, 24/7, the 4 boys would just be sleeping in sleeping bags on concrete floors.
Right.
And brush our teeth with, we put toothpaste on our fingers and just brush your teeth.
Yeah.
Right. So it's just kind of like, I think that helps you visualize what it takes, but it also builds that humility.
Yeah. I mean, we never had to do anything that extreme,
Yeah.
right? We always had, good roof overhead. We never had any real struggles like that. But, I think just knowing how hard my parents worked to give us what we had, it was more than what a lot of other kids had.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I understand that a lot more now than I did back then.
Yeah.
Right.
Of course.
But yeah, I mean, it's definitely a trait that has helped me kind of take the steps that I've taken.
Yeah. So you get into this job role.
Yep.
Big, I don't know, probably $1 billion company, who knows? And, now what? Like, sort of advances to where you're like, dude, I could do this on my own.
Yeah. So started working in the receiving department, and kind of every year I would take that next rung up, right? And eventually I got to the role where I was the director of operations. I was running that entire place, right?
Yeah.
I had 120 people underneath me.
How long did that take?
About 5 years.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and that was 5 grueling years, long hours, 12, 14-hour days, working inside of a warehouse, outside in a pipe yard. And I think, I'll back up a little bit to probably about the 3rd year I was there. They decided to expand the company, and they were adding a division, and it was going to be all carbon line pipe. And they had bought 65 acres, kind of on the northeast side of Houston. And I was chosen to help build and design that facility, get it up and running, and kind of take over that division operationally. So I think at that point, going through that process and seeing everything that is involved with kind of opening a facility, building it from scratch, dealing with all the different contractors that need to be out there, dealing with all of the different OSHA safety rules that need to be taken care of. I really got thrown into the deep end there.
Yeah.
I probably wasn't ready for it, but at the same time, I had support behind me with my superiors who would help me do that. But I was given a lot of rope to be able to do that on my own. It was away from the corporate office, so I didn't have anybody there with me. And I think that one experience, probably
You're managing a lot.
It was a lot of stuff, man.
Yeah.
We were bringing in, I think there were days we were doing 200 truckloads of pipe in one day. So it was just a lot.
It brings me to 2 questions then. So one is, what do you think they saw in you to fast track you?
I think
You know what I'm saying?
I
You've got guys that have probably been there 10, 15 years
Yeah.
that are like, what the hell is this dude? And so the second question is how did you garner the respect of the quote veterans there, or like what, because I would imagine they would harbor a lot of animosity. Like, look at this
Yeah.
young guy getting here. Now he's my boss, but I've been here 15 years.
Yeah.
Why is he the boss all of a sudden? It's like, what, that kind of dynamic.
I think it was 2 things. I think one, I had the ability to multitask really well. I could take on multiple projects at once, with, each one with their own deadlines, and I was never late. They were always on time. And, I performed well on that side of the business, taking care of customers. When I talk about a project, it's it might be a 50 truckload order of steel, right? So you've got thousands of little widgets, all the way to all the pipe that needs to be loaded, and handling those projects, making sure that they're all delivered on time, was a feat in itself. And at the same time I was doing that, I was also, what they would call a lead in the warehouse. So I was managing a small group of people. And I think that I was able to befriend the guys in the warehouse. I was able to be their friend and their superior at the same time.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of that skill set, I was able to get the respect of the warehouse workers. At the same time, I was getting the respect of my superiors, and they saw how well that relationship worked. Because like I had said before, I'm not afraid to get out there and do it. Yeah. So even if I was at work that day and I was in khaki pants and a button down, if we needed help loading pipe, my ass was on a forklift in khakis and a button down working outside, Yeah. And I think the guys they would see that.
So lead by example.
Right.
Basically, right?
Exactly. I'm a big fan of, never ask somebody to do something that you've never done yourself.
Right. Or wouldn't do yourself.
Or wouldn't do. And I think by doing that and showing them those things, they were like, okay, this guy's good. Yeah. I can listen to him. If he asked me to do something, I'm going to get it done.
Yeah.
And I think that was one of the attributes that my superior saw in me at that time, to be able to take on that next step.
So the lesson here, and I think this is a universal thing in business, whether you start your own business or you're an entrepreneur like you were during this time, excelling inside of someone else's company, is the fastest way is to lead by example.
Agreed.
Because that gets noticed above and below.
Yep.
And that builds you that reputation of, hey, man, this person, woman or male, is willing to do whatever.
Yeah.
And that's what success requires, right? The willingness to do whatever it takes.
That's right.
Right?
Yep.
Ultimately.
That's
crazy. So awesome, man. So 5 years in,
so
they're like you're running the show kind of as a lieutenant.
Yep. 5 years in, running the show operationally. And then the dynamic kind of changed inside of that company. There were some big changes that were made at the executive level. The company wasn't doing well. We were kind of privy to, at the level I was at, privy to some of the financials that were going on. And, the company wasn't doing well. We thought we should be doing better, especially with the size that we had, the just our footprint in the United States. And there was a lot of red tape to be able to do anything, right? Myself, and I was close with 2 or 3 other guys there, and they were in sales and IT. And we were the younger ones coming up, right? We were all in our late 20s, early 30s at the time. And we all have these ideas that, hey, I think if we implement this, we can do this. Well, it would go to, put this idea down on paper, and then it goes to this guy, and then it goes to this lady, and then it's got to go.
Got to get approval.
The company was ultimately owned by Sumitomo. So big Japanese corporation, they own a whole bunch of stuff, and we were one of them in their portfolio. And there was just a lot of red tape in order to get anything done that we thought would benefit us.
Top heavy, bureaucratic.
Right. It was
non-innovative, not open to innovation.
From
the front lines.
That's exactly how it felt. And the stuff that they did do, I think they throttled it way too hard.
Harvard and tradition.
Yeah, I mean, it was
the old ways.
Doing things where, especially in our industry back then, hell, even to this day, technology. I mean, it's ancient, right? You're still using. When I was working there, you got to think this is 10 years ago. When I was working there, we were using fax machines. Yeah. So it was, we're faxing things back and forth to each other. And there's technology out there that we were all saying, hey, let's do this. And when they would finally agree to something, it's like, let's throw the entire tech. Let's just turn it all on at once. And it's like, well, no, we need to do this in steps so we can kind of gradually get there. So there was a lot of different opinions. There was a lot of arguing. There was pointing fingers. It was that kind of stuff.
Right.
And I wasn't the first one to make the leap.
Yeah.
It was one of my buddies, worked in sales, super smart guy. He's probably one of the biggest entrepreneurs I know personally to this day. But he kind of made that leap first. He was like, you know what, I'm out of here. And so he kind of got that ball started rolling. And
in terms of
jumping ship and doing something different, right? Didn't know exactly what that was going to be, but jumping ship, getting out of there. It was kind of a toxic environment, right? Every day we were going to work, it was negative, right? Yeah. Anybody you talk to, it was something negative. This is wrong. This is wrong. And it was, you were drained mentally leaving there at the end of the day, just because you were trying to fight off so many different battles.
Got it. And not even focused on the main core.
You're not right. You're not focused on your mission. You're just trying to get in that door and get out.
So that's how you
by
know
5
it's
o'clock.
Yeah, you just know it's time.
I mean, when I sit down at my desk at 8:02 and I'm like, is it 5 yet?
Yeah,
you know there's a problem.
Yeah, which is a great bit of advice for those of you all who are stuck in 9 to 5 that are contemplating jumping ship.
Right.
You will, if you're open enough, you will get these signals, these feelings like, oh man, I'm dreading this.
Yep.
Then it's not for you. You got to find something. Right?
Exactly.
Right.
So, that's when he left. He kind of got that ball started rolling, and he was the one that kind of initiated conversations with some investors, stuff like that, to kind of start up our own shop and do the same thing, master distribution, but it would be focused on a kind of a niche product, right? Okay. So where we were at, we sold carbon steel, we sold stainless steel, we sold aluminum, pipe fittings, flanges, valves. We sold it all there. This would kind of be focused on a niche product. We wanted, it was just stainless and the nickel alloys. So nickel alloys are it's a much higher end product, a lot more expensive, but you don't have to house as much just because it's not used as much. You're not going to store 10,000 feet of some pipe that costs, $5,000 a foot. Yeah. You only store a little bit. So it works out because your footprint can be smaller, right? You're only doing stainless and the nickel alloys. So your
less
footprint,
inventory costs,
right? Yeah, less inventory, less overhead. Your warehouses can be smaller.
Margins are better,
right? That was kind of the idea around this company. So investors were pitched, and the majority owner, they had been in the oil and gas sector. They had been in the distribution sector for 20 years. So they understood the ebbs and flows of the industry. It's a lot of industries are like this, but it's very cyclical, right?
Yep.
The election of a president changes how
everything,
our business runs.
Yeah.
So very cyclical. You'll hit lows and then you hit high highs, and learning how to manage both of those, I think is probably the most important. But the investors who were going to put money into this thing, they understood that.
Yeah.
And I think that was important to this group, because having to explain to somebody who's never been in that industry why our sales are lower than last year, or they're lower this month than they were last month, it's a hard thing to explain and to get somebody to truly understand.
Yeah.
Hey, it's going to come back.
Yeah.
These worldly events, global events, change how we sell and how we move product.
Yeah. So for our audience out there who have businesses that are raising capital or want to raise capital or so on, it is so much easier to get investors that really truly understand the dynamics of your business.
Absolutely.
But then also bring additional value, right? Because these guys are oil and gas veterans, and so they have contacts and networks and things that you can leverage as a smaller startup or new company, right?
Exactly. Yeah, 100%. They were able to, especially in the beginning, kind of help be that constant nudge behind us to say, all right, here, we can do this. We know we can do this. It's a scary thing to go out and take all that money on and, go try to compete with these companies
that have been around forever.
That have been around forever, and
very well funded.
The giants that are in the master distribution world, they're billion-dollar companies, and starting out new and trying to figure out how to take market share and do all of that it's a pretty intimidating task.
Okay, so you started that business when?
So that company started in 2016.
Okay, and with how much money and how?
The initial raise was like 22 million.
Okay.
And with that, it was basically two asset buys. So they were two acquisitions. There was a company in Houston that was purchased, and then there was a company in New Jersey that was purchased. We bought all of their assets. So their inventory, their land, their warehouses, that kind of stuff. And that's kind of how it got started. And then the third asset buy was a nickel company in Houston. So that's how it got started, right? There was no waiting for overseas material to come in. It was
just right out the gate.
Right out the gate. The material was on the ground. It was already here. They already had functioning systems. And that's kind of how it got started.
Okay. Let's get back a little bit. So it was you, the sales guy, and who else?
There's an IT guy.
Mm-hmm.
The three of us worked at Global. And then after, I guess those two were the initial. There was an executive that came from that company that moved over as well. And that was kind of the beginning. And then hiring, we were poaching, poaching others that we knew that were good that could come over.
Okay.
And that's kind of how the base was built.
You were married at this time?
I was.
Kids?
Yes.
Okay. So it leads me to the question. A lot of people who want to make that entrepreneurship jump, what's the conversation with wife saying, look, I'm dropping this whatever good income job with benefits and so on.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go do my own thing. What is that? Because there are a lot of people is what's limiting them from taking that leap.
Yeah, it's a scary conversation to bring up. Sometimes I get nervous asking to go play golf on a Saturday, but
that's what
having to talk about that and going to something that's unsure of its future, right? It's a tough conversation to have. But what I will say is that I don't think there's ever been a point that I've talked to my wife about something and she hasn't been supportive of it.
Okay.
I think she understands my drive. She understands the things that I want to get done. And she'll ask the good questions, right? All those questions that are out there. Well, how sure are you of this? What kind of money are you gonna make? Is it the same? Is it more? What kind of underlying foundation have y'all built to make sure that this is going to be successful? And ultimately the last question is, what if it doesn't work?
Mm-hmm.
What do you do then?
Yeah.
And of course I'm the guy that's like, well, if
we'll figure
it doesn't work, we'll figure it out. I'll go figure it out. But by this point I've built enough relationships and contacts in the industry that I could go get a job somewhere else.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was never in the back of my mind, well, what if it doesn't work? What am I going to do? I'm going to be jobless. I never worried about that.
Do you even think about, because that's a question I get a lot, is do you even think of the plan B of what if this fails? You know what I'm saying? Like, to be successful, you got to be just so
you
dialed in, saying this is gonna work.
That's right. Yeah, I mean,
right?
there's only plan A.
Yeah.
And if you don't get plan A to work, the way I see it is you did something wrong in your plan A. Either you didn't execute, you weren't consistent enough, or you
the right strategy,
or you didn't do the right research to take on the correct strategy for whatever you were doing. Yeah, I mean, if you're going to go for something, go for it. But that doesn't mean walk into your job one day, quit your job, and then go home and be like, okay, what am I going to do? Right? There's a lot of research that you should be doing, finding out, what the market's like, depending on what industry you're in, but trying to understand what you're going into, learn about everything that you can about that industry and what pitfalls there are and what holes there are that you might be able to fill to take some of that market share.
Yeah.
And I think that's what this company did really well, was understanding where the industry was struggling, and we filled that hole for the industry.
Being more efficient, better service, whatever it is.
Right. I think, our biggest thing was service. All of these companies, whether they were making $1 billion a year or they were doing, 50 million a year, they all sold the same product.
Yeah.
Commodity. The exact same product. They bought it from the same manufacturer in Korea. They bought it from the same manufacturer in the US. There is nothing proprietary or special about that steel. It's the same exact steel, bought from the same companies. And we knew, with our mindset and with our drive and with what we wanted to do, we could out-service these guys 100 to 1. And that's exactly what we did. So from a quote coming in to the sales group to the material leaving our warehouse, we were better at every single step. We were faster. We were more efficient. We ran really, really lean, where some of these guys, just like the company I was at before, we had 100 guys in the warehouse. At our busiest time, when we were really pumping out steel, I had 20.
Yeah.
And we were able to run really lean with really good guys. None of them were overworked. They were all happy.
I've seen some of your office parties. Like, it's 3 p.m. Let's go hit some golf balls at the conference room glass.
We'll have a little, putt competition. We'll play some pool.
Yeah.
I think we built. I think it was filling that market, filling the hole in the market of service levels.
Yeah.
Was number one, and to sustain that and to keep the people that needed to be there was building an environment that people wanted to be in.
It's the culture.
It's the culture. So if you want to keep good people around, you got to treat them well.
Yeah.
And, a lot of people who go to work, sometimes they need a break, right?
Yeah.
And giving those employees that out and a way to, just clear their mind, walk away from the desk, go putt, go chip, go talk on the phone, go, whatever it might be, have the game on the TV in the background. Just having those things that a lot of places don't, helped us build a culture where people wanted to stay, and they almost invested in the company themselves just by showing up every day.
How do you avoid taking advantage of that, right? Obviously, it goes back to hiring the right people.
Right.
But you give them too much comfort and they kind of slack. And, how do you
I think
balance that?
I think it's a fine line, kind of walking a tightrope there. But I think it was giving people goals, right? So my boss, it was, the president of the company, was really good about giving us yearly goals. And I think filtering that down, we all did kind of the same thing to our groups, giving those goals to every individual. Be like, hey, here's what you did last year. Here's what I think we can do this year. And kind of meeting quarterly on those, checking in with them. How are you doing? Are we going to get there? And then them knowing that, look, if you do all these goals and everybody else does their goals, the company wins, right?
Yeah.
And
it's making it bigger
course,
than
of
yourself.
course, it all ties back to, financial incentives. If we all do this and the company grows to here, then we can all get big bonuses.
Yeah.
We can, we can do these different types of things. And I think setting those goals and making sure that it wasn't just a free for all, that everybody had something they needed to get done on an annual basis. I think that helped, helped us get to where we were
was
going.
Was it an environment where you could be fully transparent and start calling people out?
Oh yeah, it happened on a daily basis. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Talk about Go ahead. Talk about that. I love that.
It's more so in the sales pit, right?
Yeah.
Than out in the warehouse. The guys out in the warehouse are just
they're doing their thing.
They're there grinding, doing their thing.
Yeah.
There's not really much drama there, but yeah, man, in the sales pit, it's sometimes it's fun to watch. You'll get two guys going at it. You're like, hey, I already quoted that. No, you quoted me lower. Are you trying to undercut me?
Yeah.
Working through those things, and everybody's not in an office, right? So when I say a sales pit, there's 12, 15 guys, girls. It's a pen. Yeah. And you can hear everybody on the phone. They're talking to whoever they're talking to. But yeah, if somebody quoted something too low, they'll call them out right then and there and be like, hey, our list price is here. You went under list price. What are you doing? Why are you selling this material when you could be selling this material for a better margin?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was.
But it was not out of animosity or taking things personal.
No. It was always about making. It was always about making the dollar.
Yeah.
Right.
Of course.
We want to make that margin. And then there's times throughout the year where you want to get rid of your high costed material first, right? So sometimes market shifts and you're left with material on the floor that is higher cost than what it's being sold for right now. So you lose money, but you got to get rid of it.
Dump it.
You got to get rid of it.
Cut your loss early.
And, nobody on the sales desk wants to book an order at, negative 5%. Nobody wants to do that, right? It doesn't look good. So I understand that portion of it, but when you look at the grand scheme of things, it helps the company by getting rid of all of that high costed material so that we can bring new low cost material
and make it up in the back end.
Right. So it's kind of a long game. So getting that's I think that was always probably one of the biggest struggles that would pop up is them fighting over who's selling what steel.
This is I could see why, going back to the ranch hand situation, I could see why in you now, why the owner of the ranch was like, you'd be a good operations guy.
Yeah.
Why don't you come work for me, right?
Yeah.
Right? This is, ladies and gentlemen, this is like pure, if you really dig through what Chris is saying, this is pure operational gold. Like you could really write a book about this and make a shitload of money, bro. Like how you
you think so?
Yeah, how you operate and see things to be more efficient. But it goes back to, if you want to be an entrepreneur, be successful, I don't know what podcast that was for me, but look at the systems and find the gaps.
Yeah.
If you do something faster, cheaper, more efficient, better service, then there's a real opportunity there.
Yeah, I think
to get into.
I think if you looked at most small companies, mid-sized companies, that's exactly what they've done, right? They went into a large market, and they took a small piece of that pie, but they did it better than anybody else out there, and that's why they get the business that they do.
Yeah, and are successful.
Yeah. I think it's probably the quickest way in, right? Is finding an industry that has something they're not good at and go be better. Go be good at it. I mean, it's just
pure gold, man. Pure gold. So then 2016 you start. How do you know that, hey man, this thing is like, how do you get to 100 million? How fast you get to 100 million, and how do you know that this thing really has legs?
So
is it when one of the best investors in the world says, "Hey, I'd like to buy your company," knock knock, or like?
So one of the funny thing is that I think the idea behind this company was to always be was to always be small. And when I say small in that industry, is 50 to 60 million annually. And with that 50, 60 million, we could operate at 30, 40%, right?
Yeah.
And
which means you're making 15,
making
20 million profit.
making a bunch of million, you're making a bunch of millions. Yeah. So that was always the idea. Low overhead. This can just kind of be on cruise control, and we will fill that void that I think the industry needed. And over time, we just started getting busier and busier and busier, and more people were calling us. And we really, within the first 2 years, outgrew the space that we were already in. So there were 2 warehouses in Houston that we had, and we outgrew it. I could show you photos of these warehouses. It's just steel all over the place. Yeah. It's unsafe. Yeah. It's hard to find. You can't find half the shit you're looking for because you don't know where it is. It was all over the place. We were blowing up at the seams. And at that point, this is in 2019, decided to build a brand new facility out in LaPorte. Okay. If people don't know where LaPorte is, it's on the east side of Houston, right up on the where the ports are over there.
Ship channel, all that.
The ship channel, Baytown area. So we bought some land and we built a brand new facility out there.
Going back to your experience,
managing. Yep, going back to everything that I had done before. This was my realm. Yeah. Right. This is what I really enjoy doing, this kind of stuff. So I'd meet with our contractor almost daily, driving out there to check on the place more and more so as we started building and whatnot. So 2019, it gets built in 2019, and we start moving in. I want to say it was November, December of 2019 and all of 2020. So it was kind of a blessing in disguise that it happened right as COVID was happening. Because business, I'm not going to say it tanked. It didn't tank, but business was definitely slower. So it gave us kind of the opportunity that year to get everything moved. And when you're moving hundreds and hundreds of flatbed loads of steel, it takes a long time to get all that stuff done. And with a brand new facility, we wanted to make sure everything was done right. And we sold steel that was as big as your pinky nail all the way up to something that's bigger than, a diesel truck.
Jeez.
So making sure that all this stuff is in its proper location and the system is correct.
Inventory control, all that stuff.
Oh yeah, man. It's a very tedious task. So it takes a long time to get done and get done right. So during those COVID years was a blessing for us almost as a business, just because we were able to allocate more resources to moving than to taking care of customers at the time. I think in 2020 is where opening a new facility, we can really see that we're blowing the hinges off this door. We're making money hand over fist. Everything's good, right?
Yeah.
Now this is all.
Wife is happy.
I'm about to get to that.
Okay, man.
So when we were moving, it's out in LaPorte, which is 71 miles from my house, and that's a haul in
Houston traffic. That could be 2.5, 3 hours sometimes.
Oh yeah, easily. And I'm doing this, day, night. That's one way. Yeah. And in 2020, we had our second child was born. So my wife's at home managing our toddler and a newborn, and I'm at work for,
20 hours.
17, 18 hours a day sometimes. And, the first 9 months of my son's life, I probably saw him 10 times.
Wow.
Because I'd leave the house before he was up, and I'd come home and he's already asleep. And same thing for my daughter. And I think at that time, you know, I was so focused on making sure that this was successful, that this was done right.
You can't fail though. You can't fail.
We can't let this go wrong. Nothing
Right.
can go wrong. And, you know, I think I was almost at that, you know, stage where all else be damned, right?
Yeah.
It's a sacrifice that I'm willing to make. You know, I think in the long run, it's going to be better for us. So working wild hours during 2020, trying to get this thing up and running. And, lo and behold, we get it up and running, new warehouse. And it's, everything's good, right? Home life is
a wreck.
Is a wreck, right?
Yeah.
And not because my wife's not doing a good job, it's because I'm not there, right?
Right.
I'm not there to help with the kids. I'm not there to help drop off at school or pick up from school. My wife's having to sacrifice her job, you know, because she's got to take care of the kids. Kids get sick. She stays home from work. You know, I think there was a handful of times where I would, you know, I'd say, okay, you know, you go to work, I'll take the kids, but I take the kids to work with me. You know,
Yeah.
And you know, the kids should probably stay home and rest.
Yeah.
But you know, it's like I got to go to work.
Yeah.
I had that mentality where, you know, I have to be there or it's not going to work.
Okay.
And I think doing that for so long is dangerous. Just to your personal well-being, to your home life. It's a good mentality to have at the beginning, you know, hey, we've got to give it everything we've got. But at the same time, I think the lesson that I've learned is don't sacrifice anything at home for what you're going after. Find there is a balance.
Okay.
You know,
So going back, how would it have been different then? Like what?
I would have
Moved a family
I
out
would,
there?
no, yeah. You know, it's funny because, you know, we talked about, you know, buying a house or an apartment or something out there to do all that. But, you know, I think one of the things I should have done better was delegate some of these tasks to some of the people that worked for me, you know, and I think I was afraid that if I did that, it wouldn't be done right.
Right.
And then if I got to work
struggle with that, to be honest with you, delegation is very, very hard.
It's tough.
Yeah.
You know, if it's something you really care about,
Yeah.
It's tough to say, all right, hey, I need you to take care of this, because if I come in the next day and it's done wrong, then I've lost 24 hours,
Yeah.
right? Because now I got to go back and fix
do it
it
yourself.
and do it myself. So I think I kind of struggled with that. But looking back now, you know, I definitely should have delegated a lot more of that stuff, and I could have been home on time and done all that, but didn't learn my lesson in 2020, right?
Right.
So everything gets better. There's always the next thing that we're going to do. So we start talking about building, you know, expanding our footprint in the U.S. So we're opening up warehouses all over the country. But, you know, at this point now we've got St. Louis. We opened up in North Carolina. We opened up in Ohio.
Jeez. Okay.
And then towards the latter part, the last one we opened just last year was Utah.
Yeah.
So
your fingerprints are all over this.
yeah, we're
expansion.
kind of spread up, you know, all over. Now, all of these facilities, that's me, right?
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
my.
I'm saying your fingerprints are in
that's
this
my
expansion.
That's my job.
Yeah.
You know, and managing those, making sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. We've got the right employees in there.
So shit, 3.5 hour drive was nothing compared to this, right?
Yeah, I mean, thankfully, you know, on these expansions, we were really good at it.
Yeah.
So
Happened faster.
they happened faster. They were smaller.
Okay.
So they weren't as big as the corporate warehouse. And when you're designing a warehouse, you know, a lot of it can be done remotely, right?
Okay.
You're doing a lot of it on CAD. You're working with a racking company that can do this layout, and then you send them out there, they install it, and
Done.
you
You're
hire
cookie cutting now.
Yeah. Now
Okay.
you're hiring your warehouse staff, and
Yeah.
most of the time we would, hire like a warehouse manager, and we would fly them to Houston, and they would spend a week with us. They would learn our ins and outs, because everything we did in Houston, we did at the
You
branches.
can replicate.
Yeah.
And that's how you actually scale.
Right.
Perfect your systems and then
Correct.
replicate.
Right. So we would do all the training here, and then we would send them back out to go do the same thing that
And
they
has
learned while
family
they were
life
in Houston.
improved in this expansion, or sort of what?
Oh yeah. I think recently it's gotten a lot better. Over, we'll go back to probably a year ago when you and I met.
Yeah.
Before that, it was always a customer dinner or a vendor dinner or a happy hour or a intercompany meeting that we were, meeting at the bar for. It was, I'm not going to say every night of the week, but it was almost every night of the week that I was out late. I was drinking,
Yeah, I saw a picture of you, like you're 300 pounds or something.
Oh man, I was probably 225. Carried it all in my face, my neck. I was definitely swollen. And it was definitely from the life that I was living. You know, I wasn't as active as I should be. And there was, I read something. For the life of me, I cannot remember where I read it, but it said, in 20 years, the only people who remember that you worked late are your children.
Wow. Yeah.
And after I read that, I was like, holy shit. Like, I felt like it was talking to me, right? Because that's exactly what I was doing, right?
Yeah.
I was sacrificing my home life for everything that we were trying to do.
But you already had money
at
you
work.
already had,
right. We were
well off,
we were making good money. That was never the issue. I think it was more of me trying to enjoy some of the stuff that we were doing at work, and some of the other people who may not have had the things at home that, I had wife, kids.
Yeah.
A lot of people in the steel industry aren't married, single,
fast life.
The close ones that I worked with, they all did. And I think we all had the same issues at home, right? Going back home, and it's like, why are you out so late? Well, I had to do this. There was always an excuse that I gave for being home late. And, looking back at it, probably a tenth of those meetings that I went to, we were probably productive, right? Seriously. I mean, it was.
Well, what impressed me most is you would, we're working out at 4 a.m. and you're like, man, I had 2 hours of sleep because we just, had another corporate event.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
you're hungover.
There was many times, I remember one, we were in Matagorda, and I think that was, it was towards the end of the month. And I drove home super late at night and got home probably 2:30 and was at the gym at 4,
That's crazy. So you like, at what point did you say, I can't do this anymore? Like, this is not.
It was right before October, man. It was right before October of last year. It was like, I cannot live like this anymore. I'm hurting myself. I'm hurting my family. It's not the schedule I'm trying to live right now doesn't work for anybody. So I started with the gym, right? Let's start with the gym. And
prior to this, you're not working out on a regular basis. Yes, no.
I was at ATH for a couple of months. Yeah, gym out there in Katy. So I was there for a couple of months before that. But I was in it just to, get some activity in me in the mornings. I was going at 5:30. I wasn't lifting heavy. I wasn't. It wasn't a specific workout that I was doing. And then I jumped into that Squatober, and it was one, I think it was the group of girls that we had in there. Yeah. We all had similar mindsets, and pushing each other to do better, to lift heavier, get better form, whatever it might be. I think doing that, in October of last year, it flipped that switch all the way.
Yeah.
And from that point, it's like, all right, I'm going to do this is what I needed.
Yeah.
After those workouts, my mental clarity was, I mean, I had never felt so good my entire life, right?
Yeah.
My adrenaline was going, my mind's racing. What can I do next? What can I do to be better?
Yeah.
And I was thinking outside of the company, right?
Right.
What other things can I do to benefit myself?
Yes.
And I think,
and ultimately your family, right? Yeah.
right. And going back to what we talked about in the beginning was chasing that freedom,
Yeah.
right? I think for a good while there, I was chasing the money, right? And I wasn't worried about the freedom. I just wanted to chase.
More.
Right. We were just chasing money, trying to make more money. And the freedom was on the back burner. And I think after kind of clearing my mind with the workouts that we were doing and taking that drive to work and thinking about different things, it's like, you know what? It's time to chase freedom. And how do I do that? And that's kind of where XGolf came in.
Okay, so here we are. This current chapter of
I started doing research, different things I could invest in, right? To things that I enjoy. So my first thought is golf, right? I love playing golf. I like playing on the weekends, playing with my buddies, whatever it is. I enjoy golf. And I was like, well,
college,
yeah, you know, I don't have $100 million, so I can't buy a golf course or anything like that. You know, I was like, well, you know, and then I thought about, you know, putt. I was like, well, Tiger Woods just opened putt right next to us in Katy. I was like, well, that's not going to work. And I was just thinking one day, and I thought about the simulators that are going on in, like they have them at the PGA Superstore. I was like, well, I know there's places that do like indoor simulator golf. So I Googled indoor simulator golf, and there was only 2 of them. There was one in Katy, and then there's one kind of in town. And that was it. And they're smaller, right?
Yeah.
They had a handful of bays each. They're bars first, you know, and then there's kind of simulators there on the side to play on. And I was like, well, let's look at this. So I started looking at all the different technology that was out there. You know,
this is all the while still running the show.
Yeah, this is kind of, I'm
company.
Running parallel now,
Okay.
you know,
Okay.
still working my 9 to 5 or, you know, 8 to 6, whatever it was. Still running the show, and on my off time doing this research. So I look at all the different simulator technology that's out there, and there's a lot. There's a lot of different companies. You know, who's better, who's not. You know, and I think the hard part was trying to figure out, you know, which one would be better. And I don't remember where I was, but somebody was talking about franchising a donut shop or something like that.
Yeah.
And then it kind of clicked with me. I was like, I said, I wonder if anybody franchises golf simulators. Then I wouldn't have to worry about picking a technology building from scratch, building your own thing from scratch. You know, this might be a little bit easier. So I Googled, you know, indoor golf simulator franchise, and XGolf popped up. So I've never heard of XGolf. Let's look at them. So I went through their website, looked awesome, and down at the bottom they had a reach out to us page
to franchise.
Yeah, okay.
And
I was like, no, hell, why not? So I sent him an email.
That whole mentality, why not?
Yeah, why not? What's the worst that can happen?
What's the worst that can happen?
What's the worst that can happen?
Lose a shitload of money, but I'll figure it out.
You know, I saw the franchise requirements. You know, the capital that was needed. I was like, check. Let's send the email, right? So sent the email, and 2 hours later, I get a reply back from their COO. I was like, whoa, this is impressive. I was like, they must be a small outfit if the COO's
is emailing
me back.
People.
Yeah. You know? So he sent me an email back with a whole bunch of information, a lot of stuff to read through. And so I started going through it, and then I kind of saw the scale at which they were already at. I was like, wow, there is a lot of these things, but they're all in up north. They're in the Northeast, East Coast, Midwest. And I was like, there's nothing, like you look on the map, there is nothing in the South. And so that was kind of my first question to them was, why is there nothing in the South? And they're like, well, we've really stayed away from letting people franchise down there because you guys have so many months that are good golf weather months. Yeah. People go outside and play golf. And I was like, okay, I can see that. Up north, their slow months are, winter, May, June, July, August. Those are their slow months because they only have 3 months to go play outside. Every other month is, snow, sleet, hail, whatever it is. It's ugly weather. You can't go outside. So I was like, well, our summers down here, specifically this summer, it's hell, brutal. Yeah, it's brutal. I'll play golf every day, but I won't play in that heat. Yeah. And I was like, I think you'd be pretty surprised at how much business we'd actually do during the summer because it's so hot outside that, people are looking for things to go do indoors. And if you can play golf indoors and it's fun, you've got drinks, food, it's a fun atmosphere, it's a no-brainer. And right after, I guess during this process that I'm kind of going through with XGolf, kind of figuring out more information and talking to them, I see their website changed and there was a little location in Dallas. I was like, oh, I said, somebody's opening up in Dallas. So this was right around Christmas time last year, a couple weeks before Christmas. I called the number that was on there, got no answer, left a voicemail, and about a week before Christmas, I get a phone call. He was like, "Hey, this is so and so from XGolf. I got your voicemail." He's like, what's up? I was like, hey, I'm looking at opening one of these things in Houston, and I'd love to come see your store to actually touch, feel, look at these simulators, see how they work. Yeah. I've played golf a long time, so when I hit a club, I know how far it goes. Yeah. Right? So let's go see how accurate this stuff is. So he's like, yeah, come on up. When do you want to come up? So I got with my wife, and we had family in town for Christmas. So literally the day after Christmas, the 26th, we hopped in the car that morning and drove up to Dallas, and we spent, pretty much the whole day up there talking with him, the owner of that store, getting his feel for how the process was, working with the franchise,
Part of that whole, you're talking about doing the research, right?
Right.
Before you really jump in.
Absolutely, yeah. So really learning the ins and outs of how it went down, how much of a hold does corporate have on you, what kind of room do you have to do your own thing. And I find out that, they're loose.
The hands off.
Yeah.
We'll set you up.
You buy their technology, you buy their name, you buy their technology, and then you get to run your store. You get to design your store. You get to lay it out how you want. You get to decorate your store.
So going back for our audience, like XGolf specifically is like it's golf simulators.
Yep, it's indoor golf simulators. With bar and food.
Okay.
So like my store specifically will have 8 simulators, and you can play a full 18 holes. You can drive, chip, putt. You get to play a full 18 holes. You get to choose from 50, 60 different courses, all the famous ones the pros play on. They've got some really good international courses that are on there. The graphics are incredible.
So full virtual, like it's as if you're playing golf.
It's as if you're playing golf.
Indoors.
It's indoors.
Waitress, staff.
Yeah,
booze,
it's
food.
It's addicting. I'm serious, man.
How can you go wrong?
It is addicting. Even
if
for
your wife calls you, you can bail out anytime.
Yeah.
Be home in 5
yeah,
minutes.
you're not 30 minutes from your car. You're right there. You just walk away. It truly is an addicting game to go in there and play, especially, you go out to the golf course with your buddies and you see your buddies on the tee box and you see your buddies on the green. Yeah. Right. So you can talk a little smack right there, but in between there, you're driving all over the course. You don't get to see each other. And when you're playing the simulator golf, you're together
the whole time.
Oh, the whole time. Right. So you're there, talking trash, whatever you're doing, having a good time. You're there together.
So it's more of an experience, like a entertainment experience than golf.
It is. It is an experience. One that, if you've never hit on a simulator, most people who've hit on a simulator has been for training or
trying out new clubs,
at the store, and going here, dude. It's so much fun, and we'll have the capability. It's not just golf, right? So you'll have the capability to turn it into a presentation screen. So if you want to come do a lunch and learn corporate event, you can turn that. You got a 17-foot presentation screen that you can.
So each bay is 17.
Yep.
Feet wide. So it takes slices, fades, cuts, hooks, whatever. Yeah,
you can be as bad at golf as you want and still have a good time. Yeah.
And still take a shot of whiskey when you're done.
Yeah. You do not have to be good at golf to go in there and have a really good time.
That's fantastic. So before we get into the more details on XGolfKaty, you've left your company, right?
Yep. Okay. So I resigned.
I want to take it back a little bit further because the audience needs to know. Because this is an uncommon experience. I don't know how much you can talk about it, but there was a time when y'all got that knock on the door.
There was.
By arguably the number one investor ever.
Yeah, there
Warren
was.
Buffett came looking for y'all saying, I'd like to buy your company. Go through that and then we'll get back to XGolf.
Yeah, one of his companies that he owns came knocking. And that was you're like, whoa.
Warren Buffett wants to buy us out. Like what?
This is a big deal. You know, how does trying to comprehend that at some point in time was even to this day it's kind of hard. But that process is so long. There's so much information that shares hands. There's a lot that goes into it. And talking about doing research, what they're doing is basically researching you. They're doing a deep dive into your company to make sure that it's something that fits, that not only financially sound for them, but it kind of fits their portfolio to kind of add you in there, how they operate.
Right.
And, I can't talk about much, but, at the end of the day, it didn't work out.
Because the due diligence was.
Right. It just, there were things on both ends that couldn't be agreed upon. And, I think it was, I think looking back at it now, probably a blessing because now, able to expand a little bit more. I know there's, even though I'm not there every day, I did resign my position so I could focus solely on X Golf and be there, be around there with my kids and my wife, which I have totally loved, by the way.
Yeah.
I get to take my kids to school in the mornings. Oh man, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Before I couldn't tell you what kids class, what classroom my kids were in.
Homeroom teacher.
Couldn't tell you. I have no idea. And now I can, I know where my kids are at all times of the day. I get to take them to school. I get to pick them up from school.
But it goes back to that freedom, right?
Yeah. And that's freedom. That's what it is. I would take what I have now. I would take over money any day of the week.
Think crazy.
I really would.
That's so refreshing.
It's so
refreshing.
I feel I'm more relaxed. I think I can solve problems better.
More mental clarity.
There's just so many more things that go into having that freedom that people don't understand
Or just
until
living a fulfilled life,
yeah.
right?
And once you've truly tasted that, you know, it's like, okay, this is what I want. And finding that road or that path to keeping that will be your main
and
focus.
Once you get it, you want to, like you say, keep it.
Yeah.
Right.
And now, you know, I think now that I kind of have that freedom. And even when I open up XGolf, yeah, I'm gonna work there physically, right?
Yeah.
I can't wait to be in the store and, you know, I love to host
in.
parties,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And ask my wife. I'm always like, hey,
Yeah.
let's have 12 neighbors over,
Yeah,
you know,
come on.
whatever.
Yeah.
I love to do that kind of stuff. So doing this is going to be fun, but you know, I think now that I've figured out the freedom part, it'll be a lot easier now to add the money behind it.
Yeah.
Right. I've got this. This is solidified. I can't break this. I've figured out how to keep my freedom. Now, how do I start throwing in money on the back end for generational wealth?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
To me, that's what I want to build.
Correct.
Right. I don't want to just build wealth for me and my kids and my immediate family. I want my kids, grandkids to have something that they can touch.
Yeah.
Build a legacy that's there to stay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that
be...
you've talked about a lot. And I think that's why you and I have, you know, really seen eye to eye on a lot of things. We have that same mentality of,
exactly.
you know, thinking a lot longer than we're going to be here on this earth. Leave something behind that's worth it.
That's long lasting and long standing.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, and again, I want to go back to this kid in Corpus Christi.
Yeah.
You know, none of this was in the, not even an inkling of a thought, right?
Never in the blueprint. I mean, what is
the takeaway? What's kind of the lesson here? Do you feel like this? Because to me, it's just,
I think what I've figured out is, so some people are born into families that, you know, build companies, own companies, whatever. It's a super, super small percentage of people that are born and raised in those environments. The vast majority of people are born into a middle of the road family. You go to school, you get good grades, you go to college, you get good grades, and you get your job. And, you know, you make, you know, back then when we were younger, if you make $100,000 a year, you've got a really good job, right?
Good life, comfortable.
That's your goal, right? And that's what you're going to do. You're going to get a good 401k plan. And when you're 65,
40 years in the grind, you get Social Security.
Yeah. You get your Social Security check and that's it. And I think
nothing wrong with that, by the way. But
I think the true problem is our educational system. I think that's where a lot of us, you get sucked into that mentality where we could change the educational system to focus more on business and the real life skills that you need to be better. I think the educational system is built to pump out worker bees.
Yeah.
And that's all we ever do. And every now and then a wild bee, you know, goes off on his own and does his own thing. And I think that's where people like you and I have done that.
Yeah.
You know, everybody else that gets pumped through that system is, you know, you don't get, it's not pushed.
Yeah.
I think, I don't know, man. You don't see it as much as you should.
Yeah. So with 3 kids, what would you, I mean, you know, what is your advice to them? Because
to my kids,
yeah, if you say, hey, you need to go to college, and you'll be like, well, Dad, you know
I
what I'm
mean,
saying?
my oldest is 7.
Yeah.
And I've told her multiple times, be like, look, you don't have to go to college.
Yeah, same.
I've
done the same.
It's not a requirement. I will not require you to go to college. If you want to go to college, you can go to college. But you need to have a really good reason. You got to have a plan.
Yeah.
You know, I think she's still too young to understand that depth of conversation, but as she gets older, she needs to have a plan.
Yeah.
Why are you going to college? What's it for?
What do you want to get out of it?
What are you going to get out of it? Right. I'm not against her going to college to have a fun time. Right.
Social development.
College is somewhere where you're going to meet a lot of good people.
Lifelong friends, relationships.
Exactly.
Whatever.
So I'm not against college by any means. But to have the mindset of going into college thinking, hey, I'm gonna get my degree and I'm gonna go get my little job is not worth it.
Yeah.
And if I've built something by the time she's ready to go to college, I'm gonna have this businesses behind me that is gonna be 10 times more beneficial to her than any college would.
Yeah.
Right. I think a lot of young folks that can learn from their parents or family members who own companies by working in those businesses when they're younger.
Yeah.
It's the same way of taking that bottom of the barrel job and climbing the ladder in the corporate world, but you're doing it for you. It's something
the
best
MBA ever, man.
Yeah. I mean, it's something that you own this.
Yeah.
When I'm gone one day, it's yours.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So having them, invest their time, money, thoughts into the company that's already there, I think is 10 times more beneficial than going to college just for a degree.
Yeah.
That you probably won't ever use.
No biology in XGolf,
yeah,
is there?
No. I mean, there's no science classes while you're there. No dissections.
Maybe mixology in the craft drinks, right?
Yeah. That's probably as good as science you're going to get there is figuring out what fruit you're going to infuse your tequila with.
I love it, man. So XGolfKaty opens when?
We are shooting for November of this year.
Okay.
Construction is about to start.
Okay.
We've got.
And where will it be located?
The physical address is 3329 West Grand Parkway North.
Okay.
So it's north of I-10 between Morton Ranch and Clay.
So west of Houston, for those of y'all want to come in and take a look, check it out of town. For those of y'all in Houston or in Katy, November, where can they keep track of XGolf and the updates?
We are on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn right now.
At?
Instagram is at XGolfKaty, and same thing for Facebook.
Okay.
At XGolfKaty. That's Katy for those that don't know. And LinkedIn has a weird at. We'll have to you can just search XGolfKaty, but the best updates are going to come via Instagram and Facebook. So I'll be posting. I've tried not to post as much right now just because it's a little slow in the waiting permitting process, but we're about to kick off here, and we'll have our construction crews in there in about a week, and it's gonna go by quick.
Grand opening specials. And,
we're gonna have a grand opening. We'll have 2 soft openings that'll be kind of family and friends, kind of VIP only, and then we'll have a big grand opening. And I'm gonna treat every day like it's a grand opening, right?
Okay.
I'm always gonna be running some sort of special. There's going to be tournaments. There's going to be leagues. There's going to be really good prizes for the winners of these things.
Love it.
So we get to corporate lets you do all this stuff on your own.
Whatever you want to do. Yeah.
Run your own tournaments, run your own leagues. But they also host national tournaments. So the store in Katy can compete against people in Maryland and
Dallas or
New York or Dallas.
Yeah.
You're competing against all the other stores.
That's really cool.
So those are a lot of fun.
That's really cool.
You get to, it's not just a one-man deal. It's you get 2-3 of your buddies and you make a team and you go play. You make up your own name, and
for any of you pros that live in the Houston area, I'm open to be on a team. So put me on, buddy. Put me on.
Yeah, you want to get some good guys in there with you. So
I'll guarantee you use my ball at least once in a best ball. So then your plan is to open Katy? Like, is there a grander plan, multiple franches?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I'm currently looking at space in the Woodlands.
Okay.
Woodlands is definitely going to be number 2. And after that, I'd love to put one in Corpus.
Yeah.
I'd love to expand out to San Antonio, Austin.
Basically the Texas
maybe,
southern region.
The Sugar Land area. But yeah, South Central Texas, I would love to kind of take over that area and get these things open as fast as possible.
Yeah. And sort of to bring this all around, like what values or skills are you going to bring from your life experience to help you execute this plan?
Man, that's a tough question.
I know it is. That's why I ask them.
I think the number one skill that I'll have to bring with me is the multitasking. I can handle being able to handle multiple stores, opening at the same time, dealing with multiple contractors, doing
all the different steps of the process.
Because every store is going to be different,
Yeah.
right? We're going to design them different for that specific area that they're going to be in, and kind of coordinating all that stuff to make sure that, dealing with banks and dealing with contractors and vendors and making sure everybody's
government agencies, whatever. Yeah.
It's a circus, but making sure that the circus is enjoyable is another story. So I think that's probably the best thing. And the second thing is going to be family. I want these places to be family friendly. Yeah, sure. You come in, you can get drunk and play with your buddies, but at the same time, a lot of these venues that you see that are like that are 21 and up.
Yeah. And
it kind of limits your customer base. And I want my kids to learn how to play golf. I take my daughter out to the club every now and then. And she absolutely loves it, right? Just hitting those balls. My son's asking me to go play, but he needs a couple more years. But yeah, I want you to be able to come in with your kids, your entire family, and y'all have a blast.
Yeah.
Right. That's the whole point of opening these stores, is for people to come enjoy themselves, have a good time, not having to worry about getting a sitter if you don't want to get a sitter, but it's all
open for everybody.
That option's there. It's open for everybody, all hours.
Yeah.
We're not gonna change for that.
So bringing this back, it was really heartfelt for me when you shared the family struggle you had when you were opening up the LaPorte, 18, 20 hours away, missing 9 months of your kids, your son's early life. So to bring this back home now to where, how's that family situation, and how is this so much better than what that was?
Oh, it's so much better. I don't have those, arguments with my wife about being out late anymore. More often than, I'm home a lot more now. So more often than not, it's like, well, how
to get the hell get out of here, man.
Why is the house dirty?
Yeah.
Let's get you out of here for a while, whatever it might be. But, I'm there for my kids. I can take my daughter to cheer practice. I can pick her up from cheer practice. I can take and pick up from school. I have that flexibility to be able to do all of those things. And just for me alone, I can't speak for my wife. I'm sure she loves it. But just for me to be able to do those things is awesome. Yeah. I love it. Yeah. The only thing that needs to change now is our 6-month-old needs to stop getting up in the middle of the night. Then everything will be kosher. But the little one, our youngest one, he's 6 months. So we're still
most impressively, man, is
still in that phase.
We were doing the 75 hard when he was born.
When he was born, yeah.
So talking about you were coming in lifting at 4 a.m. not because you're drunk, but because you got
I was
sleep
awake.
With your kid.
Yeah,
you were already awake.
I was already awake. Yeah,
which is quite amazing, man. So huge success, bro. I'm proud of you.
Thank you, buddy.
I've only known you for a year, but like your life story is truly an inspiration. And something to really be admired, because again, nothing was ever set in stone, but here you go from Corpus Christi, middle income family, to running a $100 million business, almost got bought out by Warren Buffett, to now really realizing your true goal, which is freedom.
Yeah.
In building this empire with XGolf, man, that's truly awesome. Any last words, remaining words, advice to our audience that kind of, it's the atypical path, but everybody has to find it on their own. But like, sort of, what is your takeaway along this path? I mean, you're just getting started, I think.
Yeah, I'm at the very beginning here. I've got bigger, grander visions, not
Yes.
just X Golf, right?
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of things that are on my plate that I've kind of tackled, or I'm going to tackle as the years progress. X Golf's step one.
Step one,
right? So, you know, my advice to anybody is nobody's going to do it for you. You have to take that first step. And if it's scary, you know, it's the right one. If it's not scary, it's not really a jump.
Yeah.
You've got to, if there's really something you want to go after, it's going to take a little bit of courage. It's going to take a lot of thought, research, but nobody's going to do it for you. You got to do it yourself.
Yeah.
And, you know, don't make a bad decision or a rash decision. You know, think about it. Make sure that if you are leaving something, you're financially okay for some period of time. But, you know, nobody's going to do it for you. You know, waiting for something to come along is probably never going to happen.
You might wait forever.
Yeah, you might, you know, retire at 65 and
Social Security
have nothing.
and
You
have
know, I don't know
nothing.
if Social
Yeah.
Security will be around when I'm 65. You know,
That's a real question.
Yeah,
That's another
you know,
podcast, bro.
that's a whole nother thing. But yeah, just
You got to do it yourself.
you got to do it yourself.
Personal responsibility, right?
That's it. Yeah,
That's
put
amazing,
it on
man.
put it on your shoulders.
Man, this has been gold, pure gold through your life story, how you've managed every single obstacle along the way. And every time it's not always up, but in the grand scheme of things, everything was leveling up along the way.
Yeah.
Again, it's very rare to meet such a young guy, $100 million company plus, and then, you know, to say, hey, this might not be working for me. I want more. And let me do it myself. XGolfKaty. Again, that's XGolfKaty, Katy, on Instagram at XGolfKaty. Instagram, Facebook, and then look for it on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Updates, grand opening in targeting November in Katy. So if you're in town or whatever, I'm going to be there.
Oh, yeah.
So much success, man. Thank you for sharing your story. You're welcome back anytime. Actually, after you open up
After
the
we
store,
open up, we'll have to come
I
back
want to
up.
come back, come
Yeah.
on to the podcast anytime, bro. You're down the street from me to talk about that experience and then how you're going to grow, bro. A lot of success.
We'll do it.
Thank you for coming on the show. As always, with every guest on our show,
Awesome, man.
you get an end-to-end podcast cap.
Thank you, brother.
I know you wear a lot of caps, but
Oh, yeah.
I like that one too, the 1776. But man, great to know you. Obviously, we got Squattober coming up.
We got
I
it
don't know
coming up.
if we're
We're
gonna
gonna-
come round two.
We might be in the new gym. At that
We'll be in
point.
the new gym.
Yeah,
Oh,
we might
definitely
be.
gonna be in the new gym.
Yeah.
But appreciate you being on the show, man. Once again, man, Chris Pena with XGolfKaty at XGolfKaty on Instagram, Facebook, and on LinkedIn. Appreciate you being on the show. As always, to my audience, if you found any value in the show, anything you learned from Chris, and I know for a fact you learned something from Chris's experience, please do share the show. If your knowledge swole, share the show. That's how we grow. I end my podcast as I began them with an expression of gratitude. Thank you for listening. Please do share the show. And so I always leave with, be great today, but be even more grateful. Looking forward to bringing you another episode of the End-to-End Podcast very, very soon. Thanks again, Chris.
Thank you for having me.
Glad to be here. Glad you were here. What a great story. And I know it's just the start, man. I can't wait to see this thing blow up
gonna
all
be good,
across the
buddy.
state of Texas, man. XGolfKaty, XGolf Texas, Chris Pena. Thank you very much. Catch you again very, very soon.